Higuchi Ichio. Ichio's shortcut through Yanaka. New paintings, my exhibition this year. A video tour in one take. Take off your shoes, please. Wooden floor. Hoi. This painting introduces the show. Painting by me, calligraphy and poetry by my poet friend Sagai Ko. I guess you can read it for yourself. 3 mountains, 3 poets, 3 places she was in between. You don't know who Higuchi Ichio is, right? This is from her diary. She isn't well known outside of Japan, and she isn't well read in Japan anymore. Her words are just too old style, and are not updated. Japanese has changed as much in the 100 years since she's been gone as pre-Shakespearean English changed to now. That aside, this is a scroll. My poet friend said, hey, you should check her out. She lived the same places as you, and she did. She lived and traveled on the same roads I traveled. Lived in the same places. Ushigome, an old entertainment area. Kakurazaka, where my poet friend lives in the top and where she almost set up her sweet shop. Jimbocho. I love Jimbocho. Yeah, the scale is a little tricky. These people are quite small. My friend said, he asked actually, had I ever seen people painted this small, and they're too small to actually focus on. In ink painting, and I never had seen it before. I don't know why I did it. A lot of my stuff I don't know why I did. And if I do know, it's too hard to explain. Higuchi Ichio lived only 24 years. She died. Tuberculosis, consumption. Her father started a business here after he was squeezed out of the bureaucracy up here in Kanda. Spent all his money, died, and left her mother and her younger sister and herself destitute. But with a burning ambition and an education that she got here in Haginoya, near Myogadani. Girls finishing school, teach the elite ladies poetry. She also acquires some great ambition. This place is the place that I first worked in Japan, Hongo area. National University is behind that red gate, that red Akamon, most famous gate in Japan, I believe. And across the street from the gate, behind one of the buildings, is a little temple. And that temple is where she is buried. Her bones reside. Dangozaka, famous slope. Japanese don't name streets, they name hills. They name slopes. Moriogai, most famous writer of the time, lived there. Wrote a great review about her, one of her books. Here is Shinobazu no Ike, Shinobazu Pond, in the middle Benten-sama, the shrine for Benten, one of the 7 lucky gods, the only female, goddess of music and drugs and poetry and love and all kinds of trouble. The pond has beautiful cherry blossoms, the pond has beautiful lotus blossoms, but you don't see both in the same season except in this painting. I lived here 24 years, and I think about it. 24 years of exploring and finding out is all in this work, and I can't explain 24 years of finding out in one short YouTube. This is the Ueno Library, former first Imperial Library, where she used to go and read her books. The only girl in a library full of men. And now they have the National Diet's Children Library. It's still a beautiful building. Tokyo's under construction. Yanaka, where she took her shortcut through this disreputable part of town where I have my studio. Here, right there. Old and new. Yanaka is still old. A lot of the buildings survived the bombing and the earthquake, but they're not really surviving urban renewal that well. Down the hill to Nippori, where they used to burn the bodies, but don't anymore, where I live. Across the sloppy wetlands of Shitaya, rice fields, swamps, mosquitoes, streams and puddles, and a rumbling of jinrickshaw, because this was the main road. This is the road that went across to the license area, the Yoshiwara, the big sex compound, where the young men all longed to go. If they had the money, they would. And the main road rumbled right by her house in Destitution, where she tried to make a living, a little sweet shop next to a rickshaw driver. Licensed quarter, behind it the big Sensoji temple. A Sakseview hotel is a ghost. The rumble and riffraff of Saksa. And this scroll ends, as most linked verses and Renga do, with the cherry blossoms. And cherry blossom viewing, Hanami. Sitting under with a little food, a couple of friends, a can of beer. The end. Well, actually that's the beginning. That's the scroll, the bulk of the show. And then here, for the intrepid few that want to venture forth into the single mat, gift shop. Postcards and books. Donation welcome to the single mat room. A kumade of my own design. Kumades are supposed to be bright gold and red and silver to collect luck. They're a bear's paw, they're a rake. And they're sold once a year in November. Down the hill near Yoshiwara, that Ichio was surprised to find her neighbors making little scraps of paper with bright colors and getting their hands all messy and gluing sticks, and she didn't know what it was because she was an uptown girl. She didn't know what a kumade was. They're never made in black and white except now in this show. The whales in the sea and the black ship that President Millard Fillmore sent to open Japan to frighten them into opening their ports so the Americans could get fuel and water and food for their whaleboats that were sucking these whales out of the waters. Oh, here's one of the boxes and it's off. Let me see if it goes on. Yeah, it does go on. Last exhibition I had these spirit boxes painted in the inside, and I'm thinking more and more about inside and outside. And the outside I did my best Japanese urushi lacquer work on rough wood that I kept rough. Inside you might be able to see some of the painting. 9 squares, mandala, linked verses, Renga, bricks, windows. You tell me. This mandala was the last one I did last year before the exhibition. I even painted the frame around the outside. One of the local priests. This area is full of local priests. This is a real priest town. We get all our money from dead people here. Priests do anyway. Came and looked at that thing for a long time. And laughed, and he said, "It's got nothing to do with Buddhism, but I like it." This is the library. Studio library. Sign-in books. A couple of oranges that I just didn't get around to eating last New Year, and now they're mummies. Mandala. The Yanaka mandala. Also linked verses. It's a linked verse, it's a renku, it's a mandala. All these, as I said, 24 years of studying. How do you tell it on a YouTube? The smallest of the boxes. What's inside? Insides and outsides. Inside us and outside us. What is it? What do people see and what do we feel? Okay. Another 9 windows. Another story. A series of attached and separated images all along the bottom. Ueno Hirokoji, the wide road that was created to break fires that used to roar through Edo. They need a fire break, so they made a couple of big wide streets that the fires couldn't jump across. Miyate, we say across. Lots of lotus. I haven't painted lotus in 24 years. I painted them in oil when I first got here, but not since. And this year I just couldn't stop painting them. End of the year, last year, I made some of these ceramics. Burned them in a barbecue in my backyard. Another box full of hungry hearts. Large painting, largest in the show. 15 years old. I made it before I knew I was going to make this show, of course. But it is of the Yoshiwara. The Yoshiwara now. Daimon, Great Gate. The Yoshiwara Great Gate. The Yoshiwara main gate doesn't open, doesn't close anymore. And it doesn't. There's no gate there. It's just a darn street. Bunch of soaplands down there with guys calling you to come in and spend your money. Used to be a great gate. A willow beside it. Women could not pass the gate either way. They were slaves inside. It was the men that came to spend the money. This is another kumade. This one's for Ichio. Things that connect with her life. I originally started to paint about her because of the time slip and the place. I found under my feet were her steps everywhere I went in this area. But as I read her stories, I found out what a monster she was. And I don't mean monster in a bad way, I mean in a good way. She was unique. A lady that did something that nobody else in Japan could do. Her way of writing, her way of creating a new modern story. Her diaries show a burning ambition. A will to create something and be recognized for it. And she managed to do it. Just before she died, she was well known. I don't think she ever prospered economically, but she got very good repute as she was dying. Little girl. This is the softest of my lotus. On a very fine Japanese paper. Only black and white. Most complicated of my ceramic attempts. Dark outside and somehow it got to be gold inside, and that's the way it is. You go down to the entertainment area, down to the pubs and the soaplands and whatever all else, and it's just golden in there, and it's just fun in there, and you just want to get in. Of course, when you get in, it's smoky and stinky and not that much fun at all. A lady who split two pieces of wood. She's right in between them. The wood is as old as Ichio. That's over 120, 130-year-old wood from my neighbor's house demolished. This is the last of my mandala painted last year, even after the blue one. But it isn't really mandala form, but then again it is. Smallest. Finally, the wall of lotus. The last lotus I painted. More from memory than from anything else. These things cook inside you and then they come shooting out sometimes. Popping out. Midsummer lotus. A little cool in a hot place. Spacious lotus with a Benten Sama temple in the back. And that's the show. That's a wrap, man. Nothing to do but go down the stairs and wait a minute. Oop. There's an old painting. That I did a long time ago, even before the Yoshiwara painting. Painted the Yamanote-sen. Okay. Can you hear that? There's a temple drum just starting. It always does that this time of night. Well, gotta go.